Hello everybody and welcome back. So today I am bringing you guys a brand new series that I will be starting. I kind of find it exciting for me personally, and I hope you guys find it interest too. So the new series, I will be talking about abandoned places in Australia. I'm doing Australia because I'm from Australia and I just find it really fascinating what we have around. So the places will be ranging from ones that have literally been abandoned and destroyed and just vandalized, to ones that were once destroyed, vandalized, abandoned, to ones that have been, in the same state, to being repurchased and refurnished, and you can actually now go visit. I will be talking about the history behind the place, where it come from, how it was built. I'll try to find out as much as I can about the people that were there. Some of them it is a bit hard to try to find more information about, but I'm going to try my best. So I really hope you guys enjoy this series. While doing it, I will be doing my makeup, so it's going to be like a kind of get ready with me, except I won't actually be talking about the makeup. The whole time I will just be talking about the place. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Monte Cristo. So Monte Cristo is in June in New South Wales, and it is Australia's most haunted place. So if you want to learn more about the Monte Cristo and what actually happened in the Monte Cristo, keep on watching. Before we jump into it, don't forget to check out my Instagram page, where you see me post 5 times a week. So there is always something there for you guys to see. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos. And without further ado, let's get into it. For today's makeup look, I am taking inspiration from a girl called Nicole Tate. If you haven't seen her on Instagram, definitely go check it out. She's amazing. And also I dove into like a massive rabbit hole when I was researching this place, and I have so many like notes on it. I've got it written on my phone, so if you see me looking this way, I'm just reading the notes off my phone. Any of the products that I use, I can leave in the description below for you guys, as I won't actually be talking about the products that I'm using, the order, what I'm doing, any of that. I do have other videos where I show you like how to achieve eyeshadow looks and all that, but these ones are literally just a sit down, chill, chat, talk about this kind of stuff. Who knows how long it's going to be as well. Just a heads up, could be half an hour, could be 10 minutes. I don't know. Okay, so first of all, this place is very interesting, and I'm going to start telling you about the history of it. So I kind of feel like most horror movies, this house is actually built on a hill and it overlooks the town, and I feel like that is literally all horror movies. They're always on hills, they always overlook the town. You just can't run away if anything happens. So the Monte Cristo is built in June, which is in New South Wales. It's a halfway point between Sydney and Melbourne, and it was going to be the next major like crossover town. That is what they were aiming to do. So as I said, the original owner, because it's a double-story house, when he actually stood on top of the balcony, everything that he could see was what he owned. Think of it as the Lion King. When Mufasa teaches Simba, like everything that the light touches is theirs. It was exactly the same as this owner. He literally owned every single piece of land. He owned majority of the town, and he became the founder of the town. So the original owner are the Crawleys. His name is Chris William, and the wife is Elizabeth. So when they got married, Mr. Crawley purchased the land in 1876, and after years of struggle, they were farming and doing all that jazz. there was actually a railway opening up and it went straight through the center of his land. So technically he ended up getting rights and he ended up owning that as well. He then went to go on to build a hotel for the railway station, which once again he needed a license for, which he ended up requiring. So at that time, the town only consisted of Mr. Crawley's hotel, the railway, and just a few scattered houses. So there wasn't much there at all. The town then benefited from like travelers and the agriculture trade that were going through the town once that railway went down. So prior to construction of the double-story house, which is known as the Monte Cristo, in 1876, when he purchased the land, the Crawleys built and lived in a small cottage, which is now called the original homestead. The double-story house was built in 1884. Then the original homestead ended up becoming a kitchen to the double-story house and also a servants' quarters where all of the servants stayed and slept. Eventually, they also built horse stables and a ballroom which stood directly behind the old homestead. The homestead was then reknown as one of the region's social centres, where they always held balls, they had tennis courts, and they also had the first golf course that people could go and play at. So he made his money by selling off his land. That is how they became a wealthy family. So the Crawley family had 7 children. They had 4 girls and 3 boys. All of them lived into adulthood except for one, which was Ethel, who died when she was 10 months old. Now, she died in the house. What happened was back then there were a bunch of, like, they had maids. They always had maids and servants and anything else you'd like to call them. With Ethel, what happened was one maid was carrying her down the stairs until she dropped her. Ethel fell down the stairs. On the 4th step, she cracked her head and she died. Nobody wanted to touch her. Only Mrs. Crawley went and touched her and held her while she, like, until she died, even past it, and it really hit her hard. They say that is one of the main reasons as to why Mrs. Crawley is still in the house, as she is one of the main spirits, which I'll get into a bit later on. And like people like ourselves, don't know how you would say it, and like people that actually go visit the place now, they say when you walk up the stairs, once you get past like that 4th step, it actually feels like someone tries and pushes you back. And a lot of people get off balance, so they do caution, be careful. It doesn't happen all the time, but there have been cases where they have had that little push back and it feels like they're going to fall down the stairs. And families who have brought their children, and once they are like on the stairs or near the stairs, they have also suffered from asthma attacks, which is really scary because, like, can you imagine? I can't imagine. I honestly, if I had a kid, I would not take them at all. So Ethel ended up dying from a twisted bowel. It's actually quite freaky, but that is not the only freaky thing that has happened in the household. Also, keep in mind that Mr. and Mrs. Crawley were also very religious. So Mr. Crawley died when he was 69. It happened in 1910. He passed away in the boys' room because the children were grown up by then and they had moved out of home. The reason why he moved into the boys' room was because he was getting quite sick, and he actually died from blood poisoning. The blood poisoning was caused by a barnacle on his neck, which was then infected by his starched collar. So even back then, you weren't even like safe from your own clothing. So his presence is still in the house, but is not as prominent as Mrs. Crawley's. They say you can never feel both spirits in the same room at the same time. And they say you can tell who is who, as when Mrs. Crawley is present, the room turns ice cold, and sometimes you will feel Mr. Crawley in the hallway. So Mrs. Crawley passed away in 1933, and in the time from when Mr. Crawley passed away to when she passed away, she only left the house on 3 occasions. So literally in like 20 years, she only left the house on 3 occasions. That is a lot of time spent in the house. Hence why she is the only Crawley to ever spend that much time in the house. She was the longest Crawley living there. So in the household as well, especially after Mr. Crawley passed away, she was the one in charge of the house. So she passed away in the downstairs breakfast room, which she converted into a bedroom as she was too sick to be able to actually walk up and down the stairs. Mrs. Crawley ended up dying from her appendix rupturing. Like, all these deaths, I honestly cannot imagine even going through them. Ouch. People say when they walk into the boys' room and the breakfast room, they say that they can feel something isn't right and that there is a presence there. So currently, Lawrence Ryan, I don't think he lives on the property, but he lives near it. He's the current owner. I think it was passed down from his parents, who were the ones that brought it off the Crowleys. So Lawrence's parents bought the house in 1963, which was 54 years ago. His father saw the Monte Cristo 8 years prior to buying it from the Crawley children. The reason why he couldn't buy it was because they were very reluctant to sell it, and the price of it he couldn't afford. The house eventually got left unattended, which then resulted into the house going into ruins and having squatters around the house destroying it. The Ryans then were able to afford to buy the house, but there were no doors or windows or anything on it. Like, it was literally destroyed. There wasn't even any running water to it or any electricity. Yeah. So they moved into the home in 1963 with 4 children, but now there's 5, where they soon worked out that it wasn't an ordinary house and there was actually more residents in there to begin with. But the children grew up in that home, so everything that happened in that house is now normal to them. They're used to it. They honestly, I feel like if they went to like a normal house, they'd probably feel strange. So it is said that there are 10 major spirits that walk the grounds of the Monte Cristo. So the main spirits that are on the grounds is Mr. and Mrs. Crawley. Other spirits are the following. So I went on a bit of a hunt to find out who all 10 spirits were, and I found them all. So obviously the first 2 spirits is Mr. and Mrs. Crawley, who we've already talked about. The next lot of spirits are maids. They have a few extras that come and go that are potentially maids as well, but the main ones are like the following. So what happened back then were there were several maids over the years that were ages between 10 and 15 years old. They were orphans that got brought in overseas from England to serve wealthy families like the Crawleys. They had a pretty hard time at the homestead, and when people come and go from the house, like in today's time, they like to show that they are there and to be known. It is said that Mr. Crawley had children to his staff. He would go around and have his say and do what he needs to do with his staff, which was very frightening for them, as realistically they were just children. But back then it was a different story and a different time, and if you weren't married and of having children by 14 or 15 years of age, well, that was just the normal back then. One of the maids actually killed herself by falling off the edge of the balcony where she landed on the top step, hit her head, and then bled out. It is said that she was actually pregnant and it happened to be a miscarriage. It is believed that someone actually pushed her over the edge because you can see where she fell, and it is more closer to the balcony edge than it is further out where you would normally be if you actually jumped off to kill yourself. Before I carry on, I'm just going to quickly go and do the other eye off camera, so when I come back you'll know why it's like just like that. So another maid actually died on the 2nd floor while giving childbirth. Now back then the doctors actually never came to the house. One of the maids would actually have to deliver the baby, which most of them didn't know how to do. The only time they knew how to do it was if they actually had previously given birth themselves. 2 of the Crawley boys are still present in the house as well. Nothing really special about that one. Another spirit that is there, it's actually quite interesting. It's not a part of the Crawley family either. It was actually a family called the Morrises. Now, the Morrises lived in a hut just off to the homestead, and basically they helped with the farming and all of that. One day, so I'm pretty sure there wasn't really a lot like on this one, but I'm pretty sure it was a mum and dad and a son. Back then, if you weren't like in school by 8 or something like that, you had to go work with your parents. So one day this boy, like, he worked with his parents, he was sick. So he stayed behind in the hut while his parents went to work. So the boss actually found out that he was in the hut and that he saw him asleep. He told him to get up and get to work. The boy agreed, but didn't realize that he actually fell back asleep because he was so unwell. The boss actually walked back in and thought it would be a good idea to set his bed on fire. Now, back then, the huts, like, their beds were made out of straw. So doing this actually caused the whole hut to burn down, including to have the boy inside. The boy survived the fire, but he had major 3rd-degree burns all over, as you can imagine. And he ended up dying a few months later due to the burns. A lot of people have seen this boy walking around where the hut used to be, and they can still smell the hair, like the burnt hair in the area. They've had quite a few people say they can actually smell the burnt hair. So it is common. And it's also common, a lot of people, like I said earlier, they take their children and they're outside in that area playing with a child, but they're the only child there. So I'll leave that up to you to decide, you know, if you believe it or not. So another spirit that is on the property is Harold. So Harold was the housekeeper's mentally disabled son, and he was chained to the caretaker's cottage for 40 years. His mother would come and give him food and water. Children walking past would hear Harold howling and thought the house was haunted. After many years, his mother died, and when the townspeople went up to the homestead, they found Harold in the dairy. He had no food or water since his mother had died. Harold was placed in a home for the insane, and he died a short time after. I want to know how long he was chained up for before anyone found him. And to have, like, no food or water, I feel like it would have to be like a week, because I think you can survive, I think for a few days you can survive without anything. But, like, that's just crazy. And the last spirit they say to walk the grounds is a caretaker. So in 1961, the caretaker of Monte Cristo was shot and killed by a local boy after he watched Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho 3 times that day. So, like, that boy is literally a psycho. He also wrote "Die Jack Die" on the door of the dairy, which you can still see faintly to this day. Okay, so this next story honestly, like, freaks me out. I guess it's real. Like, I don't know. Apparently this is what happened. But yeah, it really freaks me out. So, in 1977, the ABC show came to do a segment on the homestead. They brought a couple of mediums with them. The first room they went into straight away, which is really weird because it's like you got to go up the balcony, was the chapel room, which originally is called the box room. The Ryans were unaware that it was a chapel. The female and male medium went around the corner to go towards the room as they were drawn to it, and saw a lady in black standing in the doorway clutching her crucifix. After that, they then found out that the room did get transformed into a chapel for Mrs. Crawley, and it was most likely Mrs. Crawley that they saw, as she was always dressed in black. Mrs. Crawley also spent an hour of her time every single day in that chapel praying after her husband passed away. Once a week, they also got a priest to go in with her and also like pray. So I feel like it's weird that, like I said, you've got to go up the balcony. So I feel like it's weird that they got drawn to that room. And like that is Mrs. Crawley's basically room, even though she didn't die there, but she did spend most of her time there. One of Lawrence's sisters also saw Mrs. Crawley on a few occasions, as she used to stay in that chapel room because there was a bed in there. And like this bit here, before when I said like this next story freaks me out, this is the part that like really freaks me out. But basically the Ryans had like family friends over that stayed the night, and they stayed in that room. And on that night, they heard footsteps coming along the balcony. Sorry, it honestly, like, I can't picture this. It just, oh my God, it just freaks me out. If I heard this, I would just jump off the balcony. So that night they heard footsteps walking along the balcony, coming into the room to sit on the bed. They also felt the pressure of the person sitting on the bed. They laid there and pulled the sheets up above their head, hoping it would go away. It eventually did, but when the person left, they also felt the person get up. They felt the weight lift up off the bed and heard the footsteps leave and walk back along the balcony. If that does not, like, if you imagine that, imagine you were in that room and like you just heard these footsteps, no one was there, footsteps walking in, and then you just feel something like sit on the bed. If that doesn't freak you out, I don't know. Like, I challenge you to go sleep in that bedroom if it doesn't freak you out. See if you can. Let me know how you go. So the Monte Cristo is now open to the public. You can go spend the night there and stay there in one of the rooms. You can do a tour. You can go during the day. You can book like a dinner special thing, which I think you eat dinner and then you can like leave. They also still keep the traditional ball going once a year, and like if you want to be invited, they just say to ask, and that's how. People who have spent the night there have said they've seen door handles turn and open, and they say like it doesn't, when they see a door open, it's not like the wind just pushes it. They said that like it actually looks like someone has grabbed the door and like is opening it, which is really freaky if you ask me. And they hear other crazy stuff like footsteps going up and down the stairs. Like I said, families who take their children there say they can see children and they want to play with them. They go ahead and play with them, but the parents only see just their child running around. People have also witnessed like other people's personalities change, the way they act, what they say, and apparently it is a sign of Mrs. Crowley taking over their body in order to help her, which is creepy. And there's been like crews with videos and, you know, those big massive like camera lights and everything. They've gone in to try like film while they're there, and those big bright lights get turned off by themselves. It's there's been quite a few of them caught on camera. I mean, I know it's hard to like tell if it's put on or not because the person behind the camera could easily do it themselves. So it is definitely one of those things where like if you don't believe it, you won't believe anything that's happened in that house. Me, on the other hand, I honestly, like, part of me believes it, but then part of me sees like footage and photos, and like you can do so much to photos these days, so much. And I don't know, I just find it hard for myself to believe that there are ghosts out there and that you can see, feel and hear them. Like I might one day have to go to this house and witness it myself, but then it's like, on the other hand, I don't want to go because like talking about it, I'm shit scared already, and if I go, like I'm just gonna freak out. Okay, so I am all finished and this is the final look. So I want to know your thoughts below. Do you reckon that these events happened at the house? I believe the events did happen. I just don't know if like what happens today when you go to the house is true or not. It is one that you do have to go see for yourself. So like I said, this location is in June in New South Wales. So if you were ever near there or around the area, I would definitely advise to go check it out for yourself and see what you think. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you like the new series. Make sure you turn that notification bell on and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next one. I'll also link all the key products that I used down below in case you were wondering what I'm currently wearing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!